That's one way to practice.
That's true.
Your maps. Well, you have the things to do. You look at everything. They look at the national libraries. They look at they look to see if the school is clean. Oh no, that. I don't think
Judy, I talked to her 2 weeks ago.
that one where you stand on it,
Yeah.
like it's called.
Oh, they filmed it.
It looks like, what do you call the hockey one? Is it beanie or something? Yeah. Let's have a race. Like all of ours and multiple races. A lot. It's the best with the woods and anything you found.
Just 3 years. You asked me for it, but I want to be my car on Friday. It's not good, that's fake. Fake news. Fake news.
Didn't work.
Good evening. The South San Antonio Independent School District regular meeting is now in session. Today's date is Thursday, October 18, 2018, and the time is 6 p.m. Could I have roll call, please, Ms. Salazar?
Yes, Mrs. Angelina Osorino,
Present.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr.,
Here.
Mr. Edward Munguia,
Here.
Mrs. Leticia Guerra,
Here.
Mrs. Connie Bravo,
Present.
Mr. Luis M. Rodriguez,
Here.
and Mrs. Elda L. Flores.
Present.
Okay, we're now going to do Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge, prayer, and call to action.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor
the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to come together for this meeting. We ask that you direct and govern all decisions that are reached here this evening. Amen. And our call to action.
All students enjoy successful education experiences, empowering them to make decisions while enriching their lives in the future they create.
Okay, the board will be now going into closed session. The board will return to open session and take appropriate action, if any, on items discussed in closed session. No action will be taken in closed session. Further, board members are reminded that all items discussed in closed session must remain confidential so as to avoid liability to the district. The board will consider and discuss the following items. Closed meeting pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.0821. Number 1, discussion concerning personnel matters pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. And the time is 6:02 p.m. Thank you.
I couldn't go into school and take my jacket off.
Board is now back in session. The time is 6:32 p.m. and we're now on superintendent's remarks. Dr. Flores.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam President. So I just want to say that it has been a whirlwind of a week so far. I have visited as many departments and campuses that I've been physically able to do so, and the folks have been great. I feel like I'm on roller skates right now, just going from one place to the other. But I will tell you, that as far as everything that I've seen, there are a lot of hardworking folks, and there are a lot of people that are committed to the best interest of the organization. And I can only say that I'm truly excited and ecstatic to begin to work with the entire staff. And so thank you very much for all the hard work that you do and for trying to make a difference in the lives of our students every single day. And I am not done by any means meeting with the rest of the campuses. I still have another campus tomorrow, and then one for every day next week as well. So I should be done in the next couple of weeks. But thank you very much for your patience, and we look forward to the challenges ahead. Thank you.
All right. Presentation and reports. Number 1, report on progress measure 3.3, percent of K through second students reading on or above grade level. Dr. Flores.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Castro, if you could please.
Yes, sir. Madam President, members of the board, I'm going to ask Ms. Director Amy Shields of Teaching and Learning to lead us in this presentation. Ms. Shields?
Good evening, Madam President, board members, and Dr. Flores. I'm Amy Shields, Director of Teaching and Learning, and tonight I present to you Goal Progress Measure 3.3. As a reminder, 3.3 is the percent of K through 2 students reading on or above grade level will increase yearly by 9.25 percentage points from 48% to the goal of 85% by 2022. So this is our baseline data for this year, and by the end of the year, we expect to be at 57.25% by the end of the school year. So this chart shows the instructional reading level expectations for first graders, and what we would like them to do is come into first grade reading on a level C. And then it shows if they're meeting that expectation, then they would progress to an F, which is 3 levels by mid-year, and then to an I, which is another 3 levels by the end of the year. So we want students to grow about a level per month. So this chart compares our end of the year kindergarten data with our beginning of the year first grade data, which is for the most part the same students. We did have students leave and new students come. So at this time, for our students that are with us, we have 40% of the first graders reading on or above level for this time of the year. So even though we had students leave and new ones come, we have about the same number of non-readers coming in from kinder. And so you notice also that we had a decrease actually in the number of students not meeting expectations and the ones approaching, and we had an increase in the number of students who are meeting the expectation for this time of year, which would be a level C, or exceeding it, which would be a level D and above. This shows the first grade data by campus, so you can see the different levels, the numbers of non-readers. So campuses did have the end of the year kindergarten data that they were able to get started with students with intervention, so they knew, and were able to identify from those lists who were their non-readers. So like I said, they could get started with interventions until we gave this test right after Labor Day is when we began that process. And especially for the non-readers and the students in the not meeting expectations column, which are level A, those students are receiving guided reading from their classroom teacher every day, but they are also receiving additional layers of support, which is more guided reading from other staff members as well. So we can kind of double time it with them to close their gaps. So our middle of the year goals, when we get to the middle of the year testing, which will happen in January, is that we want to decrease our non-readers to 10%. We want to decrease the number of students still reading on a level A to 7%. We want to decrease the number of students reading on level B to 10%. And overall, we want to increase the percentage of students reading on or above level to 45% at that time. This is the instructional reading level expectations chart for second grade. And so it takes up where they leave off from first grade, which is a level I. We want them to come in to second grade reading on a level I. And so then we would want them to progress 2 levels to a K by mid-year, and then 2 more levels to end by mid-year. As you move up in grades, there are more goals in each level. It's more complex. There's more things for students to learn, so they don't progress as many levels in 1 year after they hit level I. So this shows the data from the end of the year first grade, and then now the students that we currently have in second grade. So you can see that we had more students at the end of the year last year that we have now. So we did have quite a few, about a little over 100 that left, and about 89 or so that came. And so you can see also that the number of students who did not meet expectations increased a little bit, and then the number of students meeting and exceeding also went down. So what that tells me is that we had more students coming to the district who were not meeting the expectations, and some of the kids that left us were the ones that were exceeding the expectations. So, let's see. So this shows the data by campus for all students. So it shows you that we do have a few non-readers. I believe it's 22. And those students have been identified, and they are also kind of, like I said, we're double timing it. They're getting guided reading every single day from their classroom teacher, and then we also are providing those students extra layers of support, as well as the students in the does not meet expectations, the ones that are reading 2 or more levels below the expectation at this time. And so when we looked at that data and we saw some of the drops in the data, we wanted to dig a little deeper in our data and see, why did we have some of those decreases in the percentages of students, especially in those levels of meeting and exceeding. And so we wanted to be transparent about that and about what we found. So with our returning students, we had a drop, we had a slight increase in the do not meet expectations. And that also can be attributed to, I went through every campus, every kid, and looked at their end of the year and beginning of the year. And so what happens is over the summer when they don't receive reading instruction, if they don't read, then we do have kids who regress a level from end of the year to the beginning of the year. So remember, they're taking their end of the year test in May, and then they go about 3 months, and then they come back to school to us, and then we get started again. So that can be attributed to that. And so even some of the kids that were an H at the end of the year, those kids may now fall into maybe a G and fall into that category as well. And like I said before, you can tell from this that from the 202 to 144 that some of our good reading kids that were reading on those higher levels left us. But still, we have 38% of the second graders reading on or above level at this time. And then this is that same data set broken out by non-readers, does not meet, approaches, meets, and exceeds for each campus. And so for our mid-year goals for second grade, we would like to decrease non-readers to 2%, decrease those students that are reading in the A through G levels to 32%, and we want to increase our overall percentage of students reading on or above level to 43% at that time. And then our end of the year goal, remember, is 57.25%. So this shows where we were last year at the beginning of the year. Remember that beginning of the year data only includes first and second grade, but our end of the year data includes kinder first and second. We do not give kinder their first reading test until December. So at that time, we will roll them into our data, and then it will look different at that time. But this year we were at 38%, last year 38%, and this year, beginning of the year, 39%, just first and second. So. And then where are we with our annual target? So this shows that right now, beginning of the year, we are at 39%, and at the end of this year, we want to be a little above 57, and then the following year will be 67, 76, and finally 85 in the year 2022. So kindergarten, I've said that we don't give kindergarten the first actual reading test until mid-year, but you're probably thinking, well, what is kindergarten doing right now? So they were given free reading skills assessments to assess these 5 areas. And so what the teachers are working with them on right now are these free reading skills according to which ones they knew and then which ones they still needed to learn. And so they were grouped, and then the teachers providing those lessons and interventions at this time. And then, like I said, kinder will give their test in December, and the goal for those students at that time is to be reading on a level A or a level B. And that concludes my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, board members, the floor is open for questions, comments, or concerns. Mr. Rodriguez, you have the floor. This is a Lone Star governance item, so the 2-minute rule does not apply.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the presentation, the information. I have a question. You had mentioned that the students that come in, that they need the extra help, and they're provided with the extra help. How often is that help provided? Is it done on a daily basis, or?
Yes, sir. So guided reading, when you're organizing your kids according to data, you see your most at-risk kids every single day. So that's the classroom teacher. And then the principals have varying plans for other staff that see those kids additional times in the week. And it depends on how much help they need as to the frequency of how much time they're seeing beyond what the classroom teacher provides.
Okay, and how do you monitor their progress?
That's a great question. The teachers take a running record. So they listen to the kids read, and they mark their errors, and they're checking for accuracy and comprehension. And so that running record tells us if students are making progress and they're ready to move on to the next level, or what goals we need to continue to work with them on in that level.
Okay, and if you need to continue working with them, what happens to them at that time? If they, say after 3 months, they're still not progressing where they should be, what's the next step?
So probably if the student was not progressing, they would also be in the RTI process. So one of the things you do is you increase the frequency of the time that you're working with them. So if the classroom teacher was seeing them every day, and then maybe a staff member was only pulling in an additional 2 days a week, then you might increase the number of times the staff member pulled them to provide that additional support.
Okay.
We also might look at, do they need to be considered for special education testing? We would look at a variety of things to determine what would happen with that student.
All right, but at no point would we say, you know what, it's not going to happen or whatever. We definitely want to bring them along, correct?
Okay.
Do you have it? How long has the process been going on like this?
So this is our second year implementing balanced literacy. So we have the teachers in professional development last year, and then they're continuing to learn this year.
Okay. And how much, what's the measure of success? How successful has it been doing it this way?
Well, according to the data that I showed y'all about, I think, January or February last year, you were really able to see how kids had grown from the beginning of the year to that time. And then I think really when you see the mid-year data and you'll be able to see, okay, we have this many kids at each level and kids have moved levels, I think that's when you'll really see by level, like how kids are making progress.
I think that's all I have.
Okay, it's going to be Ms. Guerra and then it'll be Mrs. Flores.
I just had a question on the second grade, the non-readers.
Okay.
Is it safe to assume that these are new students coming into the district, not ours from the first grade going into the second grade?
It's a combination. It's a combination, but we did have, like, for instance, there's one campus that has 16 new second graders and 4 out of the 16 second graders are non-readers. That are new to, and they're not, but they are new students.
And non-readers mean they can't read a sentence at all.
Right, we're still working on letters, sounds, rhyming, blending, those things.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mrs. Flores?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Shields, for this presentation. I'm just going to, you mentioned some causes, and I'm trying to get to the root cause of why we have nearly a quarter of our first graders that are non-readers at this time. That is a concern, because we've had them in kindergarten for a whole year, and at the beginning of the year, they're still non-readers. You said one of the causes was that over the summer, since you test them, at the end of the year, and then now they're coming back as first graders, being tested at the beginning of the year, they do fall back. I wonder if there's something that we can, as a district, try to do for these students over the summer that would bring in the parents as well, where they can continue with reading and helping out, because that's so important, that's the foundation. So, that concerned me. So what I did is I did a little bit more research and I went to the TEKS, to the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for Kindergarten. There are many of them, of course. And which, for English, language, arts, and reading, which also include writing and listening and speaking skills. So I zeroed in on say, well, do these kindergarten students have to be reading by the end of the year? They do, under the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. As an example, 110.11 3D states students are expected to identify and read at least 25 high-frequency words from a commonly used list. So that's the minimum, at least 25. So if we're getting them ready and wanting them to be, to exceed and to master, then there has to be more than that. So then I said to myself, that's probably what was required of first graders years back. But because the standards have gone up, the rigor is harder. Now we're expecting kindergarten students to perform at that level as well. So my question is, who monitors that these essential and knowledge skills are being taught and reinforced in the kinder classroom all year?
So I'm going to speak to the things that specifically pertain to guided reading and the way we monitor guided reading. And that is why I will be happy to expound on that. So with right now, currently what we're doing, they're working on these 5 areas. And so there are specific activities and also ways that the teachers progress monitor to check for each student's progress in these areas weekly. And so they have a guided reading binder where they're keeping their lesson plans and also the progress monitoring for each student, so that anyone, the instructional coach, the principal, anyone who's supporting the teacher can also sit and look at, the lessons and then also the progress of the students to make sure that the things that we're doing are moving the students. So that's part of the way that we're monitoring kindergarten. And then with lesson plans, they put their TEKS on their lesson plan, so then we can monitor, okay, so they're covering these SEs, and then how are these lessons matching, and then how are we assessing their performance on these SEs.
Okay, and I understand that, and going back to what Mr. Rodriguez asked, so how much intervention is going on and how much guided reading are you giving these kids, and so by a certain time in the year, teachers already know if a student is going to be a non-reader at the end of the year, more or less, because you've been tracking them, so you're doing that. So my point is that I'm targeting K in first. Why? It's because these are the foundation years.
Yes.
And as we promote students to the next grade, second grade, third grade, well, yeah, we measure it in third grade, the state does, but it's so important that second, mainly kinder and first, but now we're going with kinder, and I'm really targeting kinder, because I can see we're in first grade, some gaps were closed, so those first grade teachers were working hard, okay, and then you move on to the second grade, some of those were closed, but it doesn't get measured till third, so really kinder is where we really need to start looking that those kids get all the help that they get in reading. And if they're already behind, then maybe more than just a little bit more intervention. Maybe it has to be, taking them out and doing a lot more reading with them all year, throughout the year. And I just say this because if not, that's the foundation. Our students will find it very difficult to succeed, and they'll even become more frustrated as they move on to the other grades because new skills are going to be introduced, and they don't have the mastery of those skills anymore. It just, the gap gets wider, and that's why we didn't do well, because we didn't close the gap in their accountability system. So I'm targeting, and I know the principals are here. The elementary principals know exactly what I'm talking about. I know that a lot of our time is spent from third grade on up because that's what's tested. But really, teachers need to know that you're looking at kinder, you're looking at first, mainly kinder. Okay, I just, I know that times have changed. Those skills that first graders I used to be a teacher. So I'm looking at, wow, these essential knowledge and skills, wow. Kindergarten didn't used to be like that. It used to be more about playing and socializing and, making sure they got along with each other and making sure they took their naps, and not anymore. The state is expecting these kids to be readers at the end of kindergarten so that they can be successful as they move on. And that's what we want to see, because those are our goals in the Lone Star governance. We want to progress in our mastery.
Yes, I 100% agree with you. We are very highly focused on kindergarten because I believe, like you, that is the time to close the gap.
That is the time.
So we are heavily supporting the teachers right now and ensuring that they feel confident in which activities and how to also progress monitor. And then the coaches and the principals are looking at those guided reading binders to see progress of the students. In fact, one of the coaches shared a great story with me about the kindergarten teachers being excited because they could see their students mastering things and moving on to the next one.
And it is always exciting to know that a light bulb has been turned on and they're reading now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really when they learn the most because their brains are sponges then. Okay, so we got to take advantage of that. Okay, all right, that's it for me.
Okay, Mr. Rivera, and then it'll be Mr. Munguia.
A couple of observations and questions. I did recognize, like Ms. Flores, end of year first grade to beginning of year second grade kind of shows that from kinder to first, the first grade teachers really picked up the ball and ran with it after the deficiencies kind of noticed after kinder. So I think that leads me to my next question. On our campus improvement plans, should we be putting in reading goals for kinder? Or specifically targeting kinder and our elementary campuses and our CIPs?
So I think we've really shifted the focus in the last 4 years from the third, fourth, and fifth to pre-K kinder first. We used to have this kind of system of if you were maybe a struggling teacher, okay, you can go to pre-K or kinder, and I think we've changed that mindset. The principals have changed that mindset with the expectations they've had with their teachers. So it is in their action plans. Every elementary has a focus of an early reading component, and not specifically kinder. Some of them is specifically kinder, some of them is specifically first grade, depending on each campus and and what their data looks like. I do want to remind too is that when it comes to early reading, we all need to see ourselves as everyone's a reading teacher. And it's not just what happens at school, but so much what happens at home as well. It needs to be a partnership between home and school, where they're reading, if they aren't able to provide, offer interventions, which I want to say, and campus principals, you can check me on this. I believe everybody did offer a summer intervention for all non-readers. They reached out to parents, they reached out to kids for them to come. So there was availability. I want to say some did at the end of June, and at the beginning of August before school started. So there were opportunities for kids where they did target our non-readers to try to get them, to close the gap over the summer. So to answer your question, yes, that needs to be a target, and that's as we monitor their action plans. I know when we go to campuses to follow up on their action plans, we're always in the kinder first and second. Some weeks I'm in third, fourth, and fifth. Some weeks I'm only in kinder. Today I was in kinder in pre-K at Armstrong. So yeah, the target, to answer your question, sir, is yes. But they also need to look at what their data is. And unfortunately, you can't take your eye off one thing. Because you take your eye off one thing.
No, and I understand that, but I think the focus needs to be on that early learning.
I agree.
It's a progression now, and because the standards are getting more and more rigorous, the earlier we start, the better off we're going to be. So that K first grade becomes real critical now. With the IR campuses, I know we discussed during that presentation, curriculum used was the guided reading, but were campuses that were rated higher, I think we had a couple of campuses that were Bs. Those, and I'm just thinking here, system of great schools, theory of action. If they have a better way that they're doing reading at those campuses, are we modeling that, or are we giving guided reading curriculums district-wide?
Yeah, so what's great about the leadership at our campuses is that we do a lot of collaborating. If somebody has it better, even not just within elementary campuses, I know Dwight has gone to Price, they're doing something with writing, and they wanted, Ms. Hernandez wanted her teachers to see that, so they set up, a learning walk at Price for everyone to learn from each other. So there is a very much a collaborative, first of all, a collaborative spirit amongst our campus principals, where they all learn together. In addition, our last data meeting, I want to say, was with all elementary principals. We had small clusters of elementary principals going over this data, kinder, first, and second, and then sharing out, okay, how did you get, how did you increase your number of needs, what was your summer program, what did you do the first 2 years, or what, how did you track students? And so there was a lot. We have monthly data meetings, and so that's where we also have another avenue, another system of support for principals to share and share their best practices.
So, there is some flexibility on curriculum if we're finding success in other ways.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not something across the board that needs to be.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, as we're talking about the curriculum used and what we're kind of finding, how do the IR specialists get involved in K and first grade? Instructional coaches. Or reading specialists, or anybody. Do we have somebody?
I can have the campus principals speak to that, because they ultimately are the ones, their reading teachers and their instructional coaches report directly to them. So would you like, we can have.
I'd like to hear from a couple just to see how we're incorporating that if we're identifying kids through data that need help, how are they getting that help?
Dr. Flores, it's your decision.
Principals, if there's anybody who feels comfortable enough in responding to that question as to how you utilize your reading coaches in your instruction.
I apologize, I'm not trying to put a principal on the spot or anything, but it's just if you can just maybe go over a process that you have at the campus.
Hello, Ms. Buchanan, I'm from Redlands. The way we use our instructional coach works really close with all of our grade levels. We have something called Wild Wednesday, where we're able to I guess, a vertical team, 2 grade levels at a time. So we have 90-minute blocks of time for the teachers to plan together. And during that time, we come up, that's our time to create their lessons that they're going to be doing, working on in the classroom. And our reading teacher, as well as our instructional coach, works really close with our teachers. So during our kindergarten and our first grade block of time, that they created their in-class support time. So it started already, they're using the data from their Pontus and Pinnell. And so they're actually going into, you can also look at it, it's on Twitter. I tweeted my teacher that's been working really, that started it today. And so you can see our instructional, our reading teacher, or my at-risk para, and our our first grade teacher, they actually have their small groups for their guided reading set up already. And so you can actually, what's happening is all of the teachers, my first grade teachers, are rotating kids according to these things right here. They're the kids' weaknesses. So they're not just using their own class, but they're seeing all the kids. And so my reading teacher rotates to all of the different classrooms with the instructional, with the at-risk para, and they're concentrating small group instruction in all of the classrooms. And so my focus for my school is my reading teacher and my para are working with my kinder and my first grade.
That's awesome. Thank you for that information. That's exactly what I was looking for. Anybody else feel comfortable enough to give a second If not, that's okay.
And I'll tell you this, Mr. Rada, we are going to continue to work on getting consistency across the board, figuring out which of our campuses are having successful strategies, and then focus on replicating those strategies throughout. And it's just a process. It definitely is not for lack of effort, lack of intent. There is a lot of hard work being done by our campuses and our principals. But what I can guarantee you is that we're working on getting a consistent approach and sharing best practices, and we're going to continue to do so. So we expect to see that growth at our next checkup point, our mid-year review. And at that point, we'll be able to further articulate and elaborate on what exactly has been contributing to our success or what has been getting in our way. And so whatever it is, we'll be working on those things. That's the charge.
Mr. Munguia?
So I see here that you're using Pontus and Pinnell for the assessment.
Yes, sir.
Is that generally regarded as the best assessment system in the state?
There are many districts who use the Pontus and Pinnell benchmark assessment system to get an instructional reading level on their students. We also use iStation, and they together give us a very good picture of each child as a reader and how we can best help them grow.
So we have access to the best tracking information available in the state?
Yes.
Okay. And as we had a very successful community meeting, so thank you to a lot of principals who are out there at Zamora Middle School. And we did touch upon our state accountability and system of grade schools. And there's still a lot of folks that don't understand system of grade schools. So I think it's just a suggestion that as we get to solutions to some of the issues we see here, we put it in the framework of system of grade schools. And we talk about what levers we're using to achieve those successes. And with system of grade schools, we're moving towards the principals. That's the area of responsibility. So now I think it's our turn to turn to the principals and say, what do you need to get these scores higher? And we'll do our best to give it to you. But ultimately, the ownership is now coming down to the campus level. So I just want to make sure that as we're going to system of grade schools, we acknowledge that and we're showing how the solutions are in that framework and how each individual campus, now that it is system of grade schools, is using that in their solutions as well. So that's.
And Mr. Munguia, just to further elaborate on that, this week we had a great meeting on revisiting our school performance framework, which is an essential component of the System of Grade Schools initiative. One thing is we have to educate our community. I was there at the community meeting with the folks, so I get to see that there's still a lot of folks that are confused or not clear as to what that initiative is. And it's a statewide initiative that 14 districts across the state out of the over 1,200 that exist in the state of Texas have committed to, and some with a great degree of success. And the other thing to point out is that System of Grade Schools is a nationwide initiative, not just in the state of Texas. Denver has it, Just as an example, you can go look up at Denver Public Schools and they'll see how a school performance framework helps establish a more well-rounded school that goes beyond just what the state accountability is. And so just this week, we were able to identify some key components that include how we perform academically, not only with the state accountability, but also how we define success in performance as a district, and then to also add a growth component that still takes pieces from the state accountability, and also such initiatives or strategies that we use, such as Fountas and Bunnell or iStation or any of these measures that we use to measure growth and track it. Another aspect that we're looking at is school culture and climate, and indicators will follow underneath. And then the fourth component would be community satisfaction, because we need to make sure that our community feels good about all the support services that we provide. So now we start getting a more well-rounded picture as to what we want South San Antonio schools to look like, and that becomes our report card that we use in conjunction with the state accountability framework. And so those conversations are beginning to take place. And then once they move from the executive level, we're going to take that to the principal level. We're going to take that to the next level, whether it's teachers or staff, community, so that everybody has input in it. So that by the time they actually solidify what that school performance framework is going to look like, that's going to be how we're going to measure the level of success as dictated by the needs of the community, as dictated by the expectations of the district and the campuses and the staff. So we're very excited about the future, and so we look forward to reestablishing those things in place.
And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong with this philosophy of system grade schools, that I want to make sure the principals and the community members here today understand. It's less top-down and it's very bottom-up, right? So it's less about the superintendent and the Linda and y'all administration telling the principals what they need to do to get these scores higher. It's really them letting us know what they need to get those scores higher, correct? And so the response, when we see the scores are low, it's going to be less Dr. Flores and less Delinda answering as much as individual campuses and individual principals answering why the scores are the way they are. Is that correct?
And yes, they are the ones who are going to have a big say. And essentially, they are the ones where the rubber meets the road. They have to make the magic happen. Our job as central administrators will be to give all the support necessary so that they can be successful. Now, how that looks like is going to vary depending on, ideally, the System of Great Schools initiative is every school eventually will become autonomous. But just like anything else, it's a process. You can't just all of a sudden let them loose and then left to their own devices. It has to be one of those pieces where we identify the key characteristics, common characteristics that we're looking for in the principals, whether we can develop them or grow them, or find the right people that will be able to fit in those roles eventually. And it really is about giving the current folks that we have in place an opportunity to grow into that level of autonomy. But you're right, the accountability is going to be more standalone per campus. But our job as central administrators is to ensure that we're providing the necessary training, support, and guidance and resources so that they can be successful in the way that they think it needs to happen. But we come back again to that school performance framework that's going to encompass exactly how we determine if the school is succeeding or failing. But I hope that answers your question.
It does, yeah. I guess the principals are very glad that you and Dylan are both former principals.
Yeah.
So you all understand what the dynamics are over there.
I'm just not sure that they're so used to speaking in front of them. And that's one of the things that they may have to work on.
Yes. But I see it as our job to make sure we provide as much to you all that you need for our kids in elementary school. So they're really the foundation of the district. So that's what they do.
Very well said.
Before we go to second round, I have a few comments. I did provide my questions, and thank you for the responses. All of them were met. The only comment I have is that if we can put the graph in board book after we're done with the meeting so that I can revisit it. One of the comments I had was, so coming into the middle of the year, those percentages that y'all are projecting, they're pretty high. And so do you feel comfortable in, with the resources that you currently have, with the team in place, that this can be accomplished?
Yes, but there's something on the consent agenda that would help too. You want to know the truth? So, yes, and I'll tell you, like, looking at the data, I dug into the data and I looked at where our kids right now. And I kind of looked at our data last year and looked at our baseline data and say, okay, how are we able to move kids from beginning of the year to middle of the year last year? So I looked at current kids, but I looked at the trends last year, and that's how I came up with, you know, what I gave you as far as where I would like us to be mid-year. So,
Wonderful. And to second what Mr. Mundia said, we're here as a board, yes, we set goals, but we're here to help you. And whatever we can do in that effort, and like you said, in one of the consent items is there. And so I just wanted to give you that support, that when it comes to our students and providing the resources that is needed, especially in the core subjects, that I believe that this board will step up and give you that effort. Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez?
Another thing, you had mentioned, or it had been mentioned that there were summer programs for a couple of weeks along. How successful have those summer programs been? I mean, are they well attended? What kind of progress is being made with that?
Well, I don't have the data. I could-
No, is it okay if I ask another principal?
Sure, I mean, if they
So,
can give us a page, as to
can
the
it-
level of participation.
Did anyone want to share about how their summer intervention went?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Ms. Castillo from Price. At the end of the year, in June, we had some non-readers. So our reading teacher pulled them out, and we had a really good turnout. I think there were about 15, so like 11 showed up. And she made it fun and interesting. And when I would go visit them, because we were still on the clock, they were like, tutoring so much fun. But she did the balanced literacy part, where, you know, read to self, she'd get the small groups, the Fontes and Pinnell. So I think with that small group, having the kids working, and even with somebody different, you know, it made it fun. And the reading teachers are probably the specialists. They know a lot more. They have the background, so they were able to bring those kids up. One thing we didn't do, we didn't test them to see where they were at, but we know they showed growth because now they're in second grade and they're not none of them are the non-readers.
So how many times during the summer did something like that take place? Was it just the one time or throughout the summer? How was that structured?
So it depends on your tutoring. We had extra funds and we did it for 2 weeks.
Okay.
For 2 weeks for 4 hours.
Okay.
So like 8 to noon.
So depending on the funding? Okay.
Yes. And then also the parents, like a lot went on vacation.
Oh, yeah.
But like, so we got a pretty good group.
Okay, well, good. So would you deem it successful?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is my first round, by the way. I have a question. I think we're all focusing on the kids and the teachers, and I think that's great. But the other entity we need to focus on is the parents and their mindset. Because a parent, their mindset when they bring a child to pre-K or even to kinder, it's like, oh, it's no big thing, they don't have to pass a test, we're going to have them there, they're taken care of by the teacher, and that's it. I think we need to change that mindset to say, guess what? Although you're not getting graded, in our eyes, your child is getting graded. In your eyes, you should be thinking the same thing. Because this is the beginning of failure if they don't start now. So I think that needs to be instilled in the parents to say, hey, you're not getting a grade, you're not just getting smiley faces and frowning faces, but now you're going to start looking at grades, even at the kindergarten level. And if you change that mindset of a parent, they may take more interest at home and say, Jesus, my kid can actually get a grade and I have to improve that. Because it's just a fun thing right now. So I think you need to also start changing when the teachers have these meetings with the parents, say, it's more than just a smiley face, a frowning face. This is going to impact what's going to happen in first, second, and third grade. And we're going to start looking at it as grade, not a smiley and a frowning face. And I think that would help a lot.
Mr. Yvonne?
I just wanted to elaborate a little on what Edward was talking about in SGS. And I think that that is definitely, Mr. Munguia, the way we want to go. That's in theory where we want to be. But I think something that we need to take into consideration as a district right now is that we have 5 IR campuses. And so while that situation is still the most important, that we kind of give the principals all the support they need at this point to get back to where we're not an IR campus anymore. And maybe once we reach those statuses, then we can kind of revisit and see where we can, you know, change things around and really start moving towards that SGS model. But I mean, I think we have a lot of improvement to make before we kind of give autonomy just across the board, and I think that's what you were kind of...
Right, it's going to be a process. But I will tell you, one of the most refreshing things that I'm finding in my first official board meeting with you folks is that the kinds of conversations that we're having are the kinds of conversations that we should be having, and where everybody's invested in the academic growth of our students, and from whether we're talking about what the parents, the charge to the parents to help us in community to work in partnership with the district, or the responsibility of the principals to take more ownership of the campuses and the autonomy goes with it. The most refreshing aspect is that these are the kinds of conversations that we definitely need to be spending time on, and not necessarily on the color of the carpet or the kinds of pencils that we're purchasing. So, you know, so to me, I just want to again reiterate that this board is doing an amazing job on focusing on the right things. And what I can guarantee you is that we're going to continue to work hard to meet those expectations that have been set by this board for our students and our campuses. So thank you for that. Definitely.
All right, board, are you done with any questions, comments, and concerns? All right, thank you. So moving on, number 2, report on the Board of Trustees continuing education credits for 2018. I believe that's my item where I need to report. So the board is required to report their continuing education credits annually. And if you can click on that report. Okay, for myself, Angelina Osteguin, 47 total hours have been received, and it breaks it down into the tiers. Do I have to go into the tiers? No. Okay. Luis Ibarra Jr., 17.75 total hours. Leticia Guerra, 45 total hours. Cani Prado, 18.5 total hours. Elda Flores, 61.5. Edward Munguia, 30.5. And then Luis M. Rodriguez, 25. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns, board members? All right, we can move on. Number 3, quarterly investment report. Dr. Flores.
Mr. Samar, thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. Today's quarterly report is for the period June 2018 to August 2018. As you can see, we have 3 different pools that we have on our cash in. We have the First Public Lone Star pool, we have Texas Churn, and Tex pool. Our grand total beginning asset value at the beginning of the quarter was $37,561,136.16. Interest earned was $240,649.91. Deposits made, $17,230,977.11. And withdrawals was $15,301,095.80, giving us an ending asset value of $39,731,667.38.
Okay, board, the floor is open. If you have any questions, comments, and concerns, this is not a Lone Star governance item, so the 2 minutes does apply. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yeah, thank you. Quick question. Just to clarify, the withdrawals in the general funds and the interest and sinking, those debt payments, debt service payments, sorry.
Correct. So where you see the IFA construction and interest and sinking, those will be funds that we allocated to the debt service fund for the bond and principal payments.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure for myself. Thank you.
Okay, are there
does that mean that what you're now moving over to the debt service, will that now clear those two funds? Will that exhaust what's in there?
No, ma'am. These are just our investment accounts. They don't tie back to the actual overall general fund and our fund balance.
No, this is just the interest?
This is just cash. This is just our cash.
Okay. And then, am I reading it right under workers' compensation fund? It's 11 million, is that what we currently have in our fund?
As far as cash flow, that should be accurate.
Thank you.
Board members, are there any other comments, questions, or concerns? Okay. Next item. We are on consent, and I do have citizens to be heard. And I believe Mr. Juan will be here. This is relevant to the consent items. And if we can have legal go over the rules for citizens to be heard.
Yes, Madam Board President, members of the board, Dr. Flores, at a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, members of the public will have the opportunity to address the Board of Trustees during this section or on any item or any subject within this jurisdiction, except the matter related to any litigation. Each speaker should sign in on the public comment sheet available at the Board of Trustees meeting. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. The Board of Trustees may, if any member deems it necessary, limit both the number of speakers and the time allotted to each speaker upon motion and second by any other member. Under the law, the Board of Trustees may only take action on items specifically listed on the agenda. Subject matter presented which is not part of the agenda will be referred to the appropriate department for review and subsequent action. Therefore, the Board of Trustees will not take formal action on any request made during public comment period. Citizens to be heard which are not on the agenda but will refer such requests to school staff for review appropriate. The board shall not tolerate disruption of the meetings by members of the audience or individual board members. Persons attending board meetings shall not delay, interrupt, or disrupt the proceedings or refuse to obey the orders of the presiding officer. Any disruption will result in immediate removal of members of the public and possible action of the board to remove disruptive individual board members. No rules of decorum are expected and no naming specific individuals or unwarranted.
Okay, it's thanks for welcoming me. My name is Juan Mejia. I had concern on item 6, which was of our officer. I had concern about our, can we hear? I had concern about one of our students at the high school, and my question, I'll let any answers to me. Will we be hiring this one officer back, or are we going to get back on the roll for our security of our students? 2, and for our staff, teachers and staff. That was number 6 with the hiring of that officer.
Mr. Behe, number 6 is an investment officer, so it's not.
Oh, I must have missed, like I came late and I went through it real quick.
No problem.
But my concern is students and staff. So that's what, so an investment officer is a replacement? Is that, can you explain to me?
The investment, I believe this item is just to name the superintendent and authorize investment officer because he's the superintendent.
I'm sorry about that. I was thinking because I'm concerned for our students, that's what I needed for. Okay, well, welcome aboard, Mr. Flores. And well, that was it. I thought we were going to get back to getting our good deeds, to taking care of our students and all so forth. I'll go to number 9 then, is we have an overview for TEA. Am I misunderstanding that? Or do we have TEA coming up to board to view our board members? Where am I, is that missing?
You're correct in the subject, so you can state your comment.
Excuse me?
I say you're correct on the subject, so you can state your comment.
Okay, so then I'll make my comment then. I don't think I feel very concerned about having TA overviewing our board to an extent y'all been very moderate. The only thing we have to address is are we going to be paying the TA, or they're coming on is it a free bono or something to review, and for what reason coming? I think if we can adjust our board members, and there's new elections coming up, I think just the adjustment itself should be a bond with our new superintendent, where everybody could be on the right page and not doing this and that. Another thing about our buses, number 10 and 11, are the buses going to be used appropriately? I had a bad experience during the voting for the TRE with somebody in the administration that said that they would take orders from one class and move the buses. They were to wait for our voters, elderly and disabled, and they were not moved at the time that I asked them to. They said only their superintendent can do that, which is the boss, and that was a call for it. Because there's no, we talk about the educational kid, we talk about everything, the concerns of our community, but the thing is, we always throw it, let our parents get involved to the reading, when our schools are really tight, which I understand, but if we can have grandparent volunteer, we can have a parent volunteer going out there, it'll help us for our readings and math and every school curriculum, but there's no opening, everything's sealed tight, and it's only me, or this and that. No, come on, let our community know. We're out here wanting to know, to better our, we cannot lose South San, that's for sure, and a lot of us are from South San. And I also want to say thanks to each and every one of y'all, and we look forward to seeing you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, and the other comments will be heard at the end of the meeting. So now we are on consent. Policy BE logo states that the consent agenda shall include items of a routine and/or recurring nature grouped together under one action item. All such items shall be acted upon by one vote without separate discussion, unless the board member requests that an item be withdrawn for individual consideration. The remaining items shall be adopted under a single motion and vote. So we have, number 1, approval of board minute meetings, time management log, and board tracker, and it has the dates on A, B, C, D, and E. Number 2, purchase of Fontes and Pinnell literacy intervention kits. Number 3, 2018-2019 district improvement plan and campus improvement plans. Number 4, approval of the October amendment. Number 5, annual approval of the South San Antonio ISD investment policy and strategies. Number 6, appoint an additional authorized investment officer for the South San Antonio Independent School District. Number 7, approve an additional authorized representative to First Public and taxable investment pools for the South San Antonio Independent School District. 8, approve the additional names of the certified appraisers 2018-2019. 9, approve action to request a representative from TEA to support and monitor board progress as a mentor district in the Lone Star Governance exemplar cohort. Number 10, approve the bus driver new hire and retention stipend. Number 11, purchase of school buses for SAISD Transportation Department. 12, approve the purchase of custodial supplies. 13, approve the updated stipend and the payment compensation plan. 14, approve the purchase of food and non-food items for the 2018-2019 school year. Board, are there any comments that you would like to pull out? I'm sorry, consents? Yes.
I'd like to pull out item number 3.
Okay, Mrs. Flores for item number 3. Mr. Ibarra?
I'd like to pull number 13.
Item number 13, are there any others? Mrs. Purazo? Number 9. Okay, so do I hear a motion to approve items number 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14? Oh, I'm sorry, 12, 14.
Move to approve.
Okay, a motion has been made by Mrs. Flores.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Guerra. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Mrs. Flores, number 3.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Flores, I just wanted to let you know that I did review every single campus improvement plan as well as the district improvement plan. 2 days, but I was looking for things that were specific.
Right.
And I believe that you and I had a conversation that, that you're going to be revisiting some of these things, so I wanted to give you that opportunity to explain to us. But before that, because I did spend a lot of time reviewing every single campus plan, and I knew that I was targeting the Lone Star Governance goals, I was targeting the constraints to make sure that I was seeing those there. And I just want to give kudos to 2 schools that were very specific in their strategies on attendance, and that's Five Toms and South San High School. They were on point with how they're going to be addressing their attendance, because that is a constraint. But as I looked at them, I talked to Dr. Flores about it, and I wanted him to give us the rest of the board the opportunity.
Sure.
Okay.
And so the first thing that I'll tell you, Ms. Flores, is that I know that our campuses have worked really hard at developing the campus improvement plans and campus improvement plans and the district improvement plan. Also, although they should be similar in certain threads on things that are important, district goals, district constraints, the mission, the vision, core beliefs. There's certain aspects that all campus improvement plans should have as a common thread that are district-wide goals, district-wide initiatives, district-wide expectations. And so those are some of the things that I know that we will ensure that these are being included. The other thing that is important to note at this point is that we do have upcoming elections, and so after the elections, after the November elections, and at our next, after our next regular board meeting, we will be revisiting our goals again as part of with the new makeup of the new makeup of the board. So once we reset our goals for what they are for this coming year, then we will be updating our campus and district improvement plans accordingly. So it's going to be a process, but you rest assured that we will be ensuring that all of our improvement plans from this point forward include both our goals and our constraints, because even though constraints are not technically named goals, they still are expectations for our campuses to perform, such as the attendance expectations. And so if there are any campuses that do not have those components in their improvement plans, you can rest assured that they will be included moving forward after the new goal setting session takes place.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions, or concerns? Mrs. Brother?
I just want to make a comment. I did not read each and every one of them. But I did read some of the campuses that pertain to the district that I represent. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of time, and I thank you for that. I was very pleasantly pleased. Gabriel, for instance, Dr. Hinojosa is a new principal to Gabriel and was coming in with lots of challenges because of the closure of schools. But I was very pleased to see that he has identified what the problems are and why it happened, and he's ready to address it. And he was very specific in his parent involvement and focusing in trying to build that communication with all the kids that were displaced. So I was very impressed with his campus improvement plan, and also Ms. Hernandez did a good job with hers at Dwight as well, and I'm sure all the other middle schools have as well. But those in particular, because that's the area I represent, so I make it my job to make sure I read those. And the high school, just as Elda said, Dr. Hernandez, you did a great job on the attendance issue. And I thank all the campuses for all the hard work. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments, questions, or concerns, board members? All right, Mrs. Flores, do I hear a motion?
Yes, I move to approve item number 13. I'm sorry, item number 3.
Okay, motion has been made by Mrs. Flores. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Ibarra. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, Mrs. Prado, number 9.
Yes, Mr. Seguin, I asked to pull this item because I'm assuming it was an item that was placed on the agenda by yourself. Can you give us specifics on what exactly will a representative from TEA be doing? What will be their duties, their responsibilities? Will they be housed here? What is their functions? And
Okay, so the purpose for requesting a representative from TEA is first and foremost to support and monitor the board progress as a mentor district for the Lone Star Governance exemplar cohort that we were just named a few weeks ago. It is based on the desire to have that the South San Antonio Independent School District continue to perform and operate as an exemplary Lone Star Governance district with a high level of fidelity to the program as intended. The TEA has been an outstanding partner in assisting the South San Antonio Independent School District to perform in the Lone Star Governance philosophy and approach to board governance, and their support is highly respected and greatly appreciated. So they will not be housed here, Mrs. Prado. It will be mainly for phone conversations, or if needed, for them to attend our board meetings when we do discuss our quarterly progress or anything related to Lone Star Governance.
so they're serving kind of as in a consultant capacity?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's not so much a representative, it's like a consultant.
Yes, as a mentor, to monitor.
Okay, I just needed clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments, questions, or concerns, board? Okay, do I hear? Oh, I'm sorry.
On this issue,
Mr. Potter?
this Mrs. Votto is a way that our board is being recognized for exceptional governance through the Lone Star model that we've instituted. So I know that we've spent a lot of time, you've been at all the meetings I've been at. And so that time and effort has finally paid off. We're recognized as only 2 of 14, is it?
I believe there is 8,
That are participating in All-Star Governance. We're
as in the cohort, the first cohort.
the first cohort. We're one of 2 districts that's a mentor district, so I think it's something to be celebrated. And it's something that needs to be spread to the community so that they understand that this is not an oversight from TA for something we're doing wrong. It's a mentoring because we're doing something right. We're actually going to be a model board for other people to go through All-Star Governance and that need help in that capacity. And we're actually going to be asked to help and to be a model and I guess, to some degree, they can ask us for assistance to go help other boards. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. So the way it's set up is we are getting information as it progresses as to the workshops that we can be attending and then be available by phone if any board members chooses to reach out to us and receive some support.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Governor, for clarification. I think maybe it was just the wording, maybe the perception to the public, as we just heard, made it sound like TEA is coming down again. So maybe the choice of words was not a good choice of words. So it was actually a good thing. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Revere?
Yeah, I think all of us were at the last LSG training. It was probably when we were at Region 20. And never did I think, and I'm sure a lot of you who have been here for a long time think, that another school district, a board member told me, y'all are doing a great job, we want to do things like y'all. And so that's part of us being a mentor district, and I think that says a lot about us and a lot about the work that's been done here. And so now, instead of them coming here to watch us, it's more like, hey, can y'all come over here and show this other district how to govern a little bit better. So I think it's a really great step in the evolution of the teamwork, the team of 8 we've got going.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we approve the request for a representative or consultant, for a better choice of words, from the Texas Education Agency to support and monitor our board progress as a mentor district in the Lone Star Governance exemplar cohort.
Second. Okay, a motion has been made by Mrs. Prado, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor? Well, I'd like to make an amendment, or I'd like to get some legal support. The motion that she made, is it relevant, or does it state the same as the motion in the consent, or is it worded differently?
I believe it was worded, it was consistent with I.
Okay, just want to get that clarification. Okay, so a motion has been made by Mrs. Prado, seconded by Mrs. Flores. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, we have Mr. Ibarra, item number 13.
I believe this was discussed in executive, turn it over to legal to give the description.
Yes, Mr. Ibarra, Madam Board President, members of the board, and Dr. Flores, per advice of council and the recommendation of administration as well, if y'all could approve, the board could approve the item as described in the recommendation sheet, but also include wording to be added into the compensation plan that stipulates eligible employees for the one-time payment that was approved by the board during the budget process are employees who were employed from the dates August 22nd, 2018 to November 15, 2018.
So I'll motion to approve that item as discussed in executive and for legal's advice.
Okay, the motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, did you have any other discussion?
The only thing I wanted to bring up was that if we could get clarification that the funding for the UIL and the science fair teachers, or I don't know if those were actually teachers, but those 2 positions, those stipends, if we could clarify where those funds are coming from.
Yeah, and just to clarify, from what I understand, it was 3 additional stipends that were included. One was the $3,000 stipend that was assigned to the music coordinator. It really was an oversight. They were actually left out from the previous budget process, and so we're trying to rectify that issue because that should have been included originally. As for the other 2, that are related to the gifted and talented, or the other position, the science fair, what is it?
It's the lead UIL elementary middle
Teacher.
school campus,
And
campus
then-
teacher,
and
and then the lead elementary middle school campus science fair.
Okay, so both of those are two additional stipends that were recommended by administration because we received additional state funding for GD purposes, and so that comes with some flexibility, which we could assign to. And so these are recommendations that we're making due to the fact that we received additional state funds for precisely for those reasons.
So not coming out of the general fund, right?
Correct.
Okay, so a motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. And all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, so now we're on discussion and possible action. Discussion and possible action to approve the quarterly progress tracker. And so we have your Lone Star Governance Manual. And so under Vision 1, we scored a 12 a quarter ago, and we gave ourselves a 12 for this current quarter. Does that still stand? And so that's page 40 of your Lone Star Governance Manual. We gave ourselves a 12 last quarter, and we were wanting to reach a goal of 12. Are we still at the 12? Is my question.
I'd say we are. At the 12.
I think just a few more weeks with Dr. Flores will be 15. So. No pressure.
All right, so board members, do we agree that for Vision 1, we are in quarter number 12?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and so what is our next target? Are we remaining to stay at a 12, or do you think we can accomplish the 15 and be master focused?
Well, when we revisit our student outcome goals, Dr. Flores, that first paragraph says that for the master focus, students, families, teachers, and community members were involved in the vision and the student outcome goals. So how are we going to revisit the student outcome goals with those parties in mind?
Well, I think a good start is having those community conversations, such as the two-way led board community meeting. I know that you folks already did a great job by getting the ball rolling. We want to make sure to continue to refine those meetings so that we can get community and stakeholder input. We also want to make sure that we extensively educate our own staff and work with our students and with our parents as an administrative team on pushing the student outcome goals and making them known so that we can get feedback, meaningful feedback from the community, how they feel about the goals that we're aiming for, and helping educate and help them understand where we are with that process. And I think that that's what the actual master focus level involves, is when we get everybody on board and to have a hand and a say as to these are the goals that we want for our district. So I think that once we can get those stakeholders involved through meaningful and intentful action, not just the board having their own community meetings, also as an administrative team really going out there and getting the word out. So I think that we can eventually get there. Now, can we get there next month?
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
Or the next quarter.
Right.
was going to
I would
be-
say for the next quarter, I feel very confident. The first rule of order that we need to do is that once we have the new makeup of the board, whatever that may be after the election, revisit our goal, have a goal-setting workshop as a board so that we can come again to the table and develop our annual targets. And then we can take those annual targets and the district goals that have been set for us, the long-term goals, and then we can make the point to take over the next quarter, go visit and get stakeholder input at all levels. Whether it's a combination from the board-led meeting or administrative-led meetings with community, with students, all the stakeholders that are outlined in the expectations for master focus.
So do we kind of keep this at a 12 for now and then?
I was thinking that because the next quarter for us would be October, November, December. So do we feel that we would be doing this within these next 3 months?
No, it's not enough time. The important things, Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff, yeah.
Okay.
There might be new people on the board, so.
Yeah, so.
And that was gonna be my other point. If it happens to have new members coming into the board after November, then there has to be a time that they have to get trained.
True.
They have to have the 2 full-day training on North Star governance before we can even do
Sure.
any of this.
Before we move ourselves to the
Yes.
next level.
I'd say keep it at a 12.
Okay. If I can make a recommendation, so the manual that is being displayed is not the current one. Can we find the current one? The one dated August the 1st, 2018? What date is this one? If you go to the TEA website. Go ahead, Mr. Munguia.
I just want to add just some extra challenges if you don't have enough, Dr.
Sure, why not?
When we get down to the engagement with the community, I'm going to challenge you to document how that's done. And I'm going to challenge you to also have some of the district's largest, most local critics in that conversation as well.
Sure, I mean, it's important to bring everybody, and especially the biggest critics or the naysayers. It's important to give them a voice as well, so everybody gets the opportunity to have input in the process.
I think on the search bar, if you put Lone Star Governance, you'll get the manual.
Speaking to that, on the board level meetings, the one we went to, the one we just had that you attended, that kind of helped with. I think what the issue is that we didn't have a lot of the vocal citizens to be heard. And the problem is we can't respond right now in this forum.
Right.
So in that forum, people can come up and they can ask questions and we can actually respond. So those community meetings are the ones where I encourage citizens who have a voice that they want to be heard to come out and talk and ask the questions that you feel are important about the situation so that we can actually engage in a two-way conversation and not just, say a comment here tonight and nobody can kind of respond to that.
And that's very true. We're trying to encourage dialogue, two-way dialogue with our community. And I think that the more that we do, the more that we carry them out, these kinds of meetings, I think the more comfortable our community will feel in coming forward so they can have those kinds of conversations with us. Exactly.
Okay, can I speak, sir? No.
Okay, so
I've been
now
at
we're
the
on
meetings.
Vision 2. So last quarter, we were at 15, and we set a goal of 15. So for this current quarter, are we still at a 15? And that's Vision 2, page 37.
I know what I was trying to say.
The board, you do that one paragraph. Are we still at master focus?
My only question with some of these is that they include the superintendent. And I know our current superintendent, of course, has not been with us for much of these discussions.
Okay.
So
So then that sets us back to a 4? Because if we can't say that for number 12.
Because he has to have 80% of whatever progress measures are being measured. And we haven't revisited that.
Okay, 4, do you feel that is accurate? All right, so we are currently at a number 4, and what is our goal?
12.
I think it's well.
All right, so now we are on Vision 3. Vision 3, we said we were at a 3, and our current quarter, our goal, we set as 0. And so are we at a 3 or are we at a 0?
Well, I think that one falls as well into the new superintendent.
I think what we're going to have to do is once we have whatever the makeup of the board may be after the elections. We sit through our goal-setting session. That's the first step that we take, and then we can follow the process as far as what additional stakeholder input we need to have involved, so we can establish the baseline moving forward after that, so we will take some time.
Okay, so we are currently at a 0. Do we project to be at a 1 in the next quarter? Or to remain at 0?
I think of 1 because this is going to focus mostly on the board. This one has a little bit of involvement on the superintendent, so I think we can achieve the 1 up there.
Yes, we can definitely see ourselves working collaboratively with the next quarter as you develop, and we develop the constraints, so that's a safe point to make.
Okay. All right, so a 1 for the next quarter. Now we are on Vision 4. On Vision 4, we were a 0.5, and we said we'd like to be at a 4. So are we at the 4, or are we still at, well, now they introduced a 1, so are we at a 1 or are we at a 0.5 for Vision 4?
We're probably back to 0 because the superintendent has to own the CPM development process.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So current quarter is a 0, and what's our next quarter target? Okay. Accountability 1. We said we were at a 0 and our target was a 1. Are we still at a 0 or did we move?
What was holding us back on that?
We're still at a 0 because the number 3, the superintendent's evaluation of performance and supporting documentation that evidences that the evaluation describes any needed next steps. So we haven't had a superintendent evaluation.
But we have the document, right? We agreed on the document already, or not?
No, because
We're on the monitoring calendar.
Monitoring report.
are we
Second
talking
column.
Yeah, we're talking about preparing to focus 1, the long
1
paragraph, number 3.
Okay, so we're at a 0 still.
Yes.
Okay, and so then in the next quarter, do you believe we're going to be at a 0 or 1?
We haven't done a superintendent's evaluation of performance yet, so we'll still be at a 0.
Okay. All right, accountability number 2. He said we were at 0.5 and our target was a 1.
There are no
No.
evaluations.
I think we go back to 0 now.
A lot of, yeah, the fact that you have a new superintendent is just kind of
Takes us back to a 0,
resetting the
starting
process.
point. It's a reset.
So we are at a 0 for accountability number 2, and do we project in 3 months to be at a 0.5 or to remain at a 0?
We made it a 0 because it talks about most recent superintendent evaluation again.
That's going to be more than a quarter. Right?
It's going to be a year.
No, it just says that the superintendent evaluation took place no more than 12 months. So it doesn't
But
say,
his will
Anything,
be at how long?
anything less than the 12 months, you can schedule an evaluation, say, 3 or 6, 3 months, 6 months.
well, in order to meet the next quarter target, we would have to do something before December.
That doesn't give them any time.
All right.
Just a little short.
Okay, so we'll be at 0 for accountability number 2. Structure. On structure, we stated we were a number 4 and that our goal will be to remain a number 4. Are we number 4?
No. And the reason I say no is because in the September 19th board meeting, it was more than 3/4 of the items were voted on using a consent item. 40% of those items were approved on September 19th.
Okay, so are we at 1?
We're at 1.
Okay. So board, do you agree with number 1? And do you believe that we will be at a 1 in the next
be at a 4.
From now until December.
We should aim for a 4. What do y'all think?
4,
So,
okay. And then we are on advocacy. We were at a 0 and we projected a 1. Are we at a 0 still?
I think we made it to
Made it to a 1.
So, did we complete the 1?
And that's at least, we've had 2, so that's more than the 1 annual.
Okay, so are we at a 3? In order to be at a 3, we would have to encompass both, right? Both paragraphs.
I think we might be able to get a 3.
Wait, have we done
But we need to start.
accomplish, we need to recognize the accomplishments of its students and staff regarding progress on student outcome goals? We haven't done that.
No.
So then we are at a 1. And do we project to be at a 3 in the next 3 months?
We would have to incorporate that into our agenda.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, that if we're going to start recognizing accomplishments towards the board progress from students or staff, you need to definitely add that to the agenda so it becomes an agenda item. Okay.
I just worry about the first paragraph in approaches focus. Because you're talking about the feeder pattern of low-performing campuses during the previous 12-month period. I think that's going to take some time to accomplish that.
Well, it just means
Well,
that
the
we
feeder
take the
pattern is
previous
at the middle
years.
school. If you go to the middle school, those feeding into the middle school, it
Such as the
covers
main
that.
Yes,
That's
sure.
what we did these last,
Yeah.
we covered 2 middle
For
schools.
the student outcome goals, they haven't been good.
Well, we went over the accountability, so our student outcomes.
But that wasn't discussed at Shepherd.
No, but it didn't say that we have to do all feeder. It just
Yeah, it
says
Once you have a meeting,
we will be having one in
A
November, and
community.
it is over the Lone Star governance goal.
At each feeder.
now this is where you split hairs, where you say, well, we discussed the accountability piece, that is tied into the student outcome goals, because we're talking about how we're performing. But did we discuss the student outcome goals explicitly? No.
No.
No, but, okay, so my question is, will we be a 3 for this next quarter, because we are covering the Lone Star governance goal at like,
At what?
But it says each feeder pattern, so if Shepherd is a feeder pattern, we didn't discuss this at Shepherd. It was finances. And Samona, well, it was accountability, but not really, not.
Realistically, over the next quarter, to safely say, if we're going to be intentional and specific, stay at a 1. And then we make progress towards ensuring that we're discussing progress towards student outcome goals
Right.
with our campuses, and then directly lead into the feeder
Feeder
patterns.
patterns.
And I think that, well, we've only done 2 so far, which is very fast, and I'll have a third one on the 2nd of November. So I think that after December, throughout the rest of the school, we can definitely accomplish 2 more board meetings at each middle school again.
Throughout the month of December?
No, for the rest of the school.
Oh, for the rest of the school year, I was going to say.
That's another challenge for you.
Yes, sir, keep tagging them up.
okay, so for advocacy, our next quarter to be a 1. Unity. Current quarter, a quarter ago, we said we were at a 9, and that we would stay at a 9. Are we still at a 9?
I think the last paragraph. Oh, no, I'm sorry, moving forward. I think we're at 9. Oh, wait, no. I don't even think we're at 9 anymore.
And why do you think we're not a 9?
I think we are a 9. And we'll probably stay a 9 because under the 10, It says the board received a certificate of completion that meant all board members and the superintendent attended the entirety of both days together from TEA for the Lone Star Darlings workshop. Have we received a certificate of completion?
No,
Madam Chair?
and then we have a new superintendent, so this applies to the
Right.
current one. So in order to receive that certificate, we would all have to go again.
It's safe to say you're.
The entire 2 days.
Right.
So
Oh, yeah, I think we can
it's not
stay.
going to be achievable for a while.
So are we in agreement that we are at 9?
Yes.
We're going to remain at 9?
Remain on it, right?
All right. So the total for our current quarter is 27, and the next quarter $39.5 is our target. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the quarterly tracker? For
Move
this
to
current
approve.
quarter? Okay, motion has been made by Mr. Ibarra. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. And it is now citizens to be heard. I have Ida Salinas.
I'm here concerning the bullying that was yesterday at the school, San Antonio Science. My daughter was bullied all these 3 weeks, and I've been confirming the administrations, they never did anything. She was assaulted yesterday. I took her to the hospital, they really didn't do anything about it. So right now I'm heading back to the hospital because she feels that she's fainting, and she has all this bumps all over her head and everything. And I'm concerned that the little girl's still in school. I don't know what's going to happen because I don't want my daughter near that little girl whatsoever. My daughter has been bullied before. She tried committing suicide, and I don't want that to happen again. So that's my concern. Nobody's going to answer me, that no, the bullying is going to be continued.
Legal, can you respond, please?
Yes, ma'am, after the meeting, I'll go speak to you and we'll get the names that we need to get, and I'll speak with the superintendent so we can address this issue.
Because if nobody does anything, I'm going hard. I'm going further.
I understand. If you can wait for me, I'll go speak to you after the meeting, okay?
Stacy Alderete?
Good evening, members of the board, everybody that's here. Welcome, Dr. Flores, I believe, Dr. Flores. I'm one of those vocal critics. My name should have just been said when it was mentioned. I'd like to speak a little bit on what was just said in the bullying issue. I've been here several times over the bullying issue. My daughter was one of those kids. My daughter actually almost succeeded in taking her life. This has been an ongoing problem for a very long time. I've come to this board over and over and over with issues like this. This current board and the board before, I've talked about it. There's no measures in place. They're right, you can't get to certain people at certain times. A big issue is not having our alternative school in our district and having 20 seats at another district, and when those seats are full, there's a waiting list. Our schools, and I'm sorry to break it to you so early, your first board meeting, but I tell it like it is. Our schools are a mess, and to sit here, we have board members who have done some hard work, and we have some who've done nothing. We're sitting in here patting each other on the back and talking about board goals, but at the end of the day, it's about the kids and not the board goals. The goals for the children have not been met for a very long time. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has been held responsible. There's been proof given of manipulation, harassment, retaliation. Nothing's been done. Nothing. You're saying, I was intrigued that you said, This time around, we're gonna hold teachers responsible. We're gonna be at the campus level. And as a matter of fact, a comment was made in your last roundtable meeting that the principals are now going to be allowed. They should have been allowed a long time ago. So who's responsible for the allowed before this upcoming year? We've been where we are for a very long time, and nobody's been held responsible. They're still sitting in the same positions, but other people who spoke the truth were retaliated against. Forced resignations, and there's proof. So I'm hoping you coming on board, that you're gonna come in with a level head and you're gonna hold people responsible, because at the end of the day, children like that young lady, my daughter and other kids who have stepped forward have not had a voice for a very long time. And we're focusing on our early college and these special junior highs. That's not what got us our 3Ds and an F. Who's being held responsible for that? Thank you.
Andrew Hernandez?
Thank you, Board Member. My name is Andrew Hernandez. I just want to let y'all know that something happened at school, that my son had happened to him. On the 3rd of October, I had sent a flyer home with my son saying that his information has been lost or something. I don't know. It was a paper that was filled out and has all our information for social security numbers, addresses, information, driver license numbers, and everything else. And they don't know what happened to the information, so they retaliated against the kids, and they put them all in ISS so they can get this information to him. And he texted me and told me they put him in ISS so he can get that paperwork to him. And they weren't gonna release him. Then he was in the middle of a class, a first grade class, where he didn't even take his 9-week exam for his grades. That's not acceptable to me. I mean, I want to know what happened also to the paperwork that y'all say. And y'all had 2 copies. I did when I re-enrolled them from Zamora, I moved them over here to Shepherd. You'll have a copy that I did that morning when I re-registered them there, when I moved them over, and I did one online. And y'all still couldn't find the paperwork on it. I want to know what happened to that information. That's what I need to know.
You missed work.
They're saying something about the lady that was there before, she got axed or whatever. I don't know what happened with her. I don't know who it was, or what, I don't care who it was. I just want to know what happened to all that information. If it's a data breach from y'all, that she took all that information, what happens with everybody else that was in that class, or us, whoever else had that information that was in those classrooms just that morning? And all those kids that didn't take the test for their 9-week exams for the school year. That's on their grades. If they don't take their exam at the end of the 9 weeks, and y'all are talking about grades and all this good stuff that, hey, we gotta apply ourselves and everything else, that's not good. I'm done, thank you.
Jacob Hernandez?
I was taken out of my class because of this paperwork that they messed up on, and I feel like that's not right, because I was taking my test, and I like how everybody's saying that about we need to take our grades seriously, but no one, like, we're taking our exams and you're taking me out for this, is to put me in ISS for something that I had no control of, or no one else had control of. And I feel that's not right. So I want something to happen with this.
Good job.
Jacob, he asked your question.
No, the next person, Deborah Hernandez.
That was my husband and my, our younger son. This happened in Allaby Shepherd. It didn't just happen to us, our family. It happened to many people. There's another gentleman, Gilbert. He was sent home with papers. So there were multitudes of families whose information was lost. I know that we weren't allowed to be in there unless we submitted all of our documents on the computer. And then there were computers at Shepherd to help people who didn't have computers at home to put their paperwork. So I don't understand why it couldn't be printed. We were told that everybody's information was lost, and that if these students that were all in ISS, Jacob wasn't the only one. Other kids were in there. Their parents, my husband is an electrician. He had to get off of work from his job. He lost money. You know, I couldn't be reached, or I would have gone. I make less than he does. But other parents had to get off work to go take care of this situation. And I don't know if you've filled out paperwork recently or seen it. It's got our social security numbers, our date of births. It says how much we earn. We fill out Medicaid numbers if we have them. I put my insurance in there. I have my mom's phone number, my sister's phone number, anything that anybody would want to steal my identity. And that's very concerning. And I don't understand why a notification wasn't sent home with the parents. And this is my part on this, is we continue to hide things at South San lately. And it's not okay. Yesterday, the electricity went down at the high school. I got an email, I got a Gmail, I got everything saying, hey, the electricity went down. This is what we did, we handled it. Okay, no big deal. I could care less now because I know what happened, I know how they handled it. It was handled in a professional manner with notification. Things happen, we mess up. There was a kid that was left at the bus station or didn't get picked up or something. We found out about it on Univision. You know, that was completely dumb. They should have just said, oh wow, we had this happen. Northside, it has happened probably 3 times to the Northside. They send a notice, the superintendent comes out and says, you know, we saw what happened, we worked on the situation, we fixed all these, this is what we've done to fix the situation, and it's never going to happen again. South San needs to take that kind of stance and stop hiding everything, because all it looks like to me is like, what else are they hiding from me? What else don't I know about this school? And that's the thing. And I know I couldn't go to that meeting because I was at a press conference. That's why I couldn't go. But I would have been. But even when we go to those meetings, they have us fill out little pieces of paper, and they only answer the questions that are agreeable in front of people. They don't ask, and they don't really let you ask any questions. We had some earlier in the year that were great, and we actually got to physically talk. But some of them, if I see that they're going to do little papers and roundtables, I don't even show up because it's not worth it. Those are just little, you're only allowed to talk about predetermined topics that they want you to talk about. And what you really want to talk about, nobody gets to hear. And that's what we want to get fixed. Nobody's going to fix like this right now. The reason I come here is because I would have talked about that at that round table, because it would have been assigned for me to be allowed to talk about. And those are the things that need to get fixed, the things that you don't hear about.
Thank you for getting on this. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, do I hear a motion to dismiss? Move to adjourn. Okay, motion has been made by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mrs. Guerra. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries, and the time is 8:14 p.m.